Okay, hopefully less noise now. And good morning. So what I'm going to do with this video is basically the advertisement of a prediction because I remember back in the real world when we were in the stock campus before the merge, we had sent, we have made some calculation and sent a thesis on the highs of Bitcoin for 2025. So in February, this was saved and sent to my private channel and ultimately led to the highs of Bitcoin, right? This was where we predicted, or later, yeah, this is where we predicted that the highs would be, which exactly happened to follow the biggest crash in history of crypto in a single day. So, that being said, I wanted to make sure that people have a platform where a lot of information is sent and that we have a place where you can build a long-term portfolio with information, data, sharings of all kinds, and stocks that are looking per minute, as well as my personal portfolios to the point where an ROI of 3,100 on the year is happening, right? And you have access to all of that, as well as new stocks coming in for the quarter to be on a rally. So that's something to consider. At the end of the day, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people doing the same thing, but are they as profitable? Are they picking the right information? Are they dissecting in real time? Are they creating a model for information as well as using a AI to give you signals, right? I'm trying to offer as much information and data as possible that I find online so that everybody can benefit from their all around versatile portfolio. It's very important to have LTIs because at the end of the day this is compounding, right? A small 20% crash over a period of 4 years, and 4 years later now you're up, thousands of percent. So at the end of the day, it's very important to think that you need an LTI portfolio, long-term investment ideas, and just to keep compounding. That being said, I also share a lot of information about current market status and as well as cheat sheets of current moving average price range and places where price is willing to pivot, as well as levels, lower expected move, upper weekly expected move, lower weekly expected move, points in the market where it should bounce from, and or targets for your trades. And a lot of these targets are based on patterns. They're based on the um, IV of the option flow, based on order flow, and a lot of this stuff ends up being correlated, which therefore you can't really miss a beat. So that being said, the channel also has very important channels, market wisdom, where you are filled with uplifting quotes from very well known, reputable traders Just a place where if you're second guessing yourself or have doubts, you can just go to and start reading a bunch of these, and it'll give you a little bit of hope in the sense that you can control yourself, because ultimately the market's a mirror. The market will make sure that you lose. The market is there for you to lose. The algorithms are not in your they're not there to help you. They're there to create a second guess in your mind where you make the right or the wrong decision. And so it's a place where you can find a lot of information and help you out in difficult times. Videos that I send showing what I see in the market, making analysis, making sure that people are ready for the week, the month, or anything that happened in the market and the way I see it, the way I view it through my eyes. Because ultimately, I've been quite profitable in the last 4 years, trying to remain ahead of the curve because it's a hard hobby, but at the same time, it's very rewarding if you have the network and if you have the connections. Server also offers APIs from whale orders that you can follow if you don't, let's say, tomorrow or Monday you don't have time to trade. You only have a few minutes to look at the market and then assess the trend. And let's say you don't really know if your bias is right. If you're short, you're long, you can go in the channel and see that there's, if they're all puts, then might as well go puts. If your bias is puts, then it's most likely right. Also has weekly trades. You have pretty decent weekly trades. We made it so that it fetches a certain specific tickers and then minimum value of 2 million. Most of the time, you can't go wrong if you follow a $3.3 million order, right? Especially when they're edging, you can figure out a bias and pick a side and take the order with them. Same way with this, you know, we try to filter them to the point where there's not very many that comes out. And so most time, I would say 90% of the time, they are winners because you're on the same side as the trend. If you are trading 0DT, we have a API also that fetches all 0DTs that can help you find a side and play with them. That's something to consider. Main chat, we have a lot of information, a lot of data that everybody fetches because ultimately one person can't just fetch all the information by themselves. I mean, sometimes you can, but at the end of the day, you're more likely to have a hard time fetching all this information. So it is a place where a lot of this stuff comes up and we can share it here. So, as well as detailed information of our strategies and places where you can find data. There's a there's something for everyone, I believe here, because ultimately you're in a place where people have their goals and we're here to help people achieve them. Very important stuff. Especially personal goals, right? The personal goals are going to be something that you're looking forward to, and sometimes you don't have you're alone, right? So if you can find someone that has the same similar goal, then you can help each other. You can uh, make it an easier path or a shared path towards your final goal. Lots of information, lots of data, lots of explanations. Ultimately, it's filled with prime. That being said, we have there. A lot of this stuff is not hasn't reached the 200 moving average yet, so a lot of liquidity trapped at the bottom, a lot of market structure break, which ultimately I do believe we are not done with the downside. I think there's going to be a few more traps that are going to be set and some consolidation into more lowers. Because you see this trend did bounce, but it barely made it halfway through the original bounce. I like the 50% strategy, and it barely made it there to end up crashing to a low, right? And then once the 50% happened here on the second time that on the lower low rather, once it formed a higher low, it had an explosion of purchase, which led to the trend since then. Now, because we've been uptrending since the end of April, I do believe there's going to be some type of significant pullback. And the prime area would be over here, 23.2, 23.4, somewhere thereabout. I think would be a nice lower low and for a continuation higher during November and December. So I do think that because of the severity of the break, we can only wait for some kind of pullback, have confirmation that the pullback is either reaching support or resistance turning into support from the break of it and the amount of volume in flux. So far, the volume has been very significant to the point where I do believe these lows are going to get tapped before November. So then we have a better discounted price to come back up. Because ultimately, this could be a nice little pattern before run up. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be waiting because my LTIs are protected. I have no reason to hurry in to the market, especially towards the end of the year. If September wasn't bearish, October might be bearish. So ultimately, it's something to consider that if we do fail to create a higher high in the next week, we're likely to just fetch somewhere in the mids of the daily on Friday and then start coming right back down again. I would even see the price go under 200 for a nice little pull or a liquidity fetch rather. So for now, be defensive, stay defensive, protect yourself, protect your capital, protect your investments, because ultimately there's going to be more opportunities ahead. Same thing with crypto, right? It's been bounced back, but as soon as this trend line breaks, we're going to go way down. Could we have called a top? We're not going to know until the end of the year. But ultimately, as of right now, a retest from under, it needs to capture at least the 115 to 117 mark. And even then, it could be a head and shoulder over under. So for now, it's just protect yourself and be in the mindset that anything can happen and that you're gonna be ready for the outcome. It's easier to react to price action than to predict. Predicting this after one post of one man has done so much damage. You're going to have to use all of your mental capital. It's very important. If you go in too fast, you buy in too quick, and this is just a small pullback, and then you get caught. and trap at the top, you're going to lose money on all of the gains that you've done since we've called the break in April. So defensive. Same thing here, like in April, under, over, and it went for it, and it kept bouncing up. So we're not out of the weeds yet. I think price action really needs to show us that it's bullish. Moving average is crossed. We got to be very careful here. I don't really have any stocks in mind for the week because I'm I'd rather wait for confirmation. I mean, gold's been on a rampage, but this time it printed a bit of massive bearish engulfing candle. So even gold might be a short. You might have an opportunity to short somewhere around 39, at least a 100-point drop. If it closes under 39.86, you know you have support over here. The opportunities are wide, but at the same time, it could very well reverse. So you have to be careful. But yeah, other than that, all I see is these big fetch because of the way the moving average are inclined. Either we consolidate in this range, or what's going to happen is a claw. Same way this, like as soon as the 20 starts crossing 50, it's just going to start dipping for very heavily, right? And we failed to reach the all-time highs, so obviously there's going to be a test of the buyers. If they can't push it back up, if they don't want to push it back up, it's going to create a low. It's going to have to. There's plenty of liquidity below, and I could see a trade back into the most traded zone. So yeah, I don't have very much else on the menu because a lot of this stuff has already been gone. We've already made most of our profit this year. Now it's time to just chill, wait for a reaction, and then play the reaction. Because if they're really bullish, then you're going to see massive amounts of buyers. But in my perspective, I think we're going to go and fill all these lows that were left behind from August. Could be a good opportunity to buy for the end of the year. That's where I would set my orders. So yeah, guys, if you have any question, reach out. If you want to upgrade, do so and come and talk. I will help you and steer you in the right direction. We have plenty of information coming up, plenty of details that we can share and help you with. So yeah, I hope this helps and come see us.